the Rod Graphing Show, simulcasting on both iPadio and Spreaker. And I just found out if I have 5 public broadcasts on Spreaker, I can broadcast on iHeartRadio Live. Interesting. We'll see how this works out. I'm not quite sure if I've got the audio problem fixed or not, but so Prince is dead. 57 years old, and he's gone. And I'm a bit internally conflicted, or at least I was. I think I'm leveled out. I think I'm balanced now. But yesterday, after his death was announced, of course, the social network sites exploded with the news and people posting things and this and that. And by the end of the day, I was like, enough. Okay, we get it. Prince is dead. I just got tired of the overexposure to it, I guess. It's like everything else. And it kind of turned me off. And I wouldn't consider myself a huge Prince fan. But he was a huge part of, I guess, the 80s music scene, and I did listen to quite a bit of his music. But I realized, as I was listening to some of the news stories and listening to people talk about him and some of the things that he has done in his, way too short life, I came back around to realize that it was actually the fact that it was on Facebook that was bothering me. It wasn't Prince himself. It wasn't his death. It was the fact that I was seeing all this stuff on Facebook. So I separated the two out in my mind this morning. And once I did that and just looked at the passing of this guy, this crazy little weird looking, extremely talented, hard to figure out guy, I actually started to get emotional about it. And then I was trying to figure out why am I getting emotional? Yeah, it's sad. We get that. I get that. But I don't have a personal attachment to Prince, really. He's just a guy. He's a music guy who passed away like countless others. So what is it about this one? So I started to examine why, and as I listened more and more to some of the things, wow, this guy's done a lot of things with his life to help people. That probably had a lot to do with it. The fact that he's from Minneapolis and I'm a resident of North Dakota, which really, other than Fargo, our biggest claim to fame for a big city close to us is Minneapolis. So North Dakotans have kind of a connection to Minneapolis, to the Twin Cities. Not to mention Minnesota Vikings. Prince was always at the Vikings game. Purple. It was... I guess that was part of it, but then I realized that Prince really had an effect on my youth. I remember when I first heard Prince and the Revolution, and I saw these guys. You guys remember the album cover? I know, album cover. That's dating me right there. It was basically Prince, this androgynous kind of looking guy, except for his Mexi stash, dressed in some frilly clothes, some dude in a doctor's mask on the keyboard, 2 chicks, one wearing thigh highs and the other wearing some kind of leather. I wasn't quite sure what to feel about them. I found out later they were quite the goers. What were their names? Lisa and Wendy. Yes. Oh, Lisa and Wendy. So there was that attraction. And then the big black guy who played the bass, and then the crazy little drummer who was kind of like he's kind of like a carbon copy of Prince. That was the Revolution. And when I listened to Prince's music when it first kind of came on the scene, as somebody who is and always has been very much into hard rock, metal. My favorite bands are Rat, Poison, Dokken, Kiss. That kind of music was my kind of music. Prince kind of represented that new wave that stuff, you don't really listen to that. You don't really like it because that's gay. It's kind of gay. But Prince was brilliant because for guys like me, the incorporation of heavy guitar drew us in. It drew me and my friends in. It really did. And he was really one of the first ones to do that. They've done a lot of done it since. Michael Jackson copied that style. Janet Jackson did it with Black Cat and a few of the other songs that she put out where she got some famous guitarists to do some guitar licks for those songs. But Prince kind of stuck with it, and he did it himself. He actually played the guitar. So guys like me and my friends were very confused by Prince because we didn't want to like him. And he talked very softly, and when we saw him on MTV, and we're like, what is this guy? What's going on here? But, like I said, the music was good. It was different. It was new. It was something that grabbed your attention. And so, yes, I actually bought the cassette of Prince and the Revolution. Let's get crazy. That was awesome. I would crank my 68 Charger, man. I would crank that song and roll the windows down, cruise Central, Friday and Saturday night. It was right in my playlist along with Def Leppard. April Wine. You know, back when you had to pop the cassettes out and switch them, you didn't really have a playlist. Or, if you were a techie Ted like me, you went home and sat at the hi-fi and put the record on and then recorded a cassette, a mixtape. That was your playlist. But beyond the music, the sexual aspect of Prince also confused us 14, 15, 16-year-old guys. Because the girls in our school lost their minds for him. Most of them, not all, but a lot of the gals took a liking to Prince. And we couldn't figure that shit out for nothing. We actually had to compete with Prince. You know how hard that is when you're confused as a young lad and you don't understand why all these women like a guy who wears lace gloves while you're wearing a leather biker jacket? The two don't compute together very well in the brain of a highly pubescent young man. And I was never, ever more confused. And more thankful. I have to, maybe this is part of the reason why I was so emotional this morning, because it did bring me back to my youth thinking about Prince. Prince got me close. As close as I ever was in my high school years. To receiving oral sex. I have to give Prince the credit for that. I'm sure this is just one of a million stories like this out there. I'm sure you've probably got them yourself if you were a teenager in the 80s. But I was approached by an attractive young lady from my class. My friend and I were going to the Prince concert. I believe it was in Fargo. I'm not sure. It might have been mine. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I know there was a Prince concert and we were going. We ended up not going, but we had plans to go. And when this young lady found out that we were planning to attend the Prince and the Revolution concert, she took us aside, looked us straight in the eye, and said if we could get a piece of his clothing, a glove, anything, that she would make it worth our while. The fact that we did not go to this concert, I don't know what happened. We obviously probably didn't have money. I don't know what held us up. But boy, we wanted to go. And boy, would we have done our level best to secure a piece of Prince's clothing so that we might complete this transaction. That's the kind of stuff that went on when Prince hit the scene. He stirred things up. He was very different. And looking back now with him passing away, and on that note, what happened there? Canceled a concert or two, and then was sick, but then came out and did the concert, and then was trying to fly home and ended up stopping in Illinois because of a medical emergency, and then came back out. I'm reading accounts where people saw him riding around his Paisley Park, some mall by where he lives, on a bike, and was sitting on the curb, and somebody's going to take a picture, and he's like, no, don't do that. I can hear it right now. No, don't do that. And he had that air about him that he could just say things and I think people would listen. They had an incredible amount of reverence for him. And I don't know, again, if that was part of his marketing or if that was just his presence, because I never met the guy. But looking back now, I wonder, so much is being made out of the outpouring of support and sympathy for him passing away. A huge block party in Minneapolis last night. And he had just had one like a few days ago. When he got back to Minneapolis, he had one of these giant block parties. It's kind of odd that he passed away the way that he did, however that is. I've heard a report that there were drugs found, possible overdose. I don't know. I don't even like to speculate on that. But all this has made me wonder, what was Prince? What was it about him? I've told you some of the things that happened to me that were affected by Prince. Was he really this big music icon? That's what it seems like today when you listen. I mean, it's been all over the news. It's huge that he passed away. People are very affected by it. And there are many people coming across the airwaves on TV today singing his praise and talking about all the amazing things that he did and what kind of person he was. And it just makes me wonder, is he a music icon? Is he just that good? Or is this all because of very slick marketing? Because if you stop and think about it, some of the things I just mentioned were pretty ingenious as far as marketing to consumers, because that's really what this is all about. Marketing your product, and his product was music. He did that in a very genius way. The music style alone. But then when you couple that with things like the movie Purple Rain, he stayed relevant. He did things that were very market-oriented. He got attention. Remember when he became the artist formerly known as Prince? I don't remember when he came back to being Prince, but I remember that being a big thing. I remember the Super Bowl performance with the... I actually did this. We talked about this in the podcast we were doing at the time. We basically critiqued the Super Bowl performance that Prince was in. And of course, we joked about the big sheet that was dropped with the backlight so you could see the shadow, and he basically turned his guitar into a very phallic symbol. I thought that was kind of funny. Especially in light of the, at that time, the whole Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction thing was still fairly popular and relevant. He did things like that. He changed his music style. I think Prince was a very slick marketer. He taught people in music that they need to own their own music. You go to YouTube right now and try and find a Prince song, you won't find one. You won't be able to watch a Prince video on YouTube because he made sure of it. So he did a lot in that area as well. So I guess at the end of all of this, as I try and get it straight in my mind, and I guess, for lack of a better term, mourn the passing of Prince, I think he was both. I think he was a very slick, genius marketer who knew what he was doing. And he became a music icon because of that. Because of all of it, the whole package, the whole picture.